ladies and gentlemen of the press. Once again, we thank you for your presence. You will recall that last Thursday, I addressed a press conference on the PDS saga, at which I revisited a number of issues and reminded government of its duty to provide an update to Ghanaians on what was going on relative to the PDS deal. We smell a rat, and permit me to say we smell an elephant, because we had come across a strange letter addressed to the board chair of MIDA and signed by representatives of Meridian Power Ventures and Energy, which we made references to at our last press conference. We smelled a rat because the contents of that letter was in keeping with the pattern of deception and roguery that the President Akufo-Addo government has become infamous for. Barely 72 hours after our press conference, and I need to remind you that we indeed gave an ultimatum of 48 hours for the government side to respond. They did, but they did it some 24 hours after. Whatever the case is, the government, through the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, wrote to the Millennium Challenge Corporation of America to notify them of the termination of the PDS concession and steps it intends to take to replace PDS with another concessionaire. Ladies and gentlemen, even with this letter, we are not too clear about the real intention of the government in authorizing the Minister of Finance to write the termination letter, knowing very well that the only person with capacity to do so is the chairperson of MIDA. Diligent as the NDC is, we had caught President Akufo-Addo pants down, the same way we caught him in the $12 million Oslo Chancery deal, the bloated 800,000 CD website deal, and the attempt to swindle Ghanaians of $800 million in the Ameri Novation deal. Ladies and gentlemen, let's pause to ask ourselves, why are we in this PDS mess? And how did we get here? Ladies and gentlemen, it must be noted that in the first place, it was the Akufo-Addo government itself that created the PDS mess through their greed and negligence, thereby jeopardizing the over 22 billion Ghana cedi worth of assets of the Electricity Company of Ghana. In actual fact, we are in this embarrassing mess called PDS because of the shady, if not criminal, conduct of the Akufo-Addo government in its handling of the ECG concessionaire agreement. The following are three cardinal sins of the Akufo-Addo government which has led us into the PDS quagmire the country presently finds itself in. 1. The decision of Dr. Bawumia, Ken Ofori-Atta, and MIDA to change the precondition of a bank guarantee into an insurance guarantee as a meeting at the Jubilee House on 19 February 2019, as captured on page 8 of the FTI report. Secondly, government's failure to conduct the necessary due diligence on the supposed insurance guarantee, which was provided by PDS before handing over the 22 million Ghana cedi assets of ECG to them. We know from Ken Ofori-Attah's termination letter that even though ECG did not receive the requested confirmation and proof of due authorization by Al-Qut by the transfer date, ECG was compelled, and compelled underline, to confirm acceptance of the demand guarantee despite the advice by Hutton and Williams LLP, who are the transaction advisors to the deal, out of a desire to ensure the occurrence of the transfer by March 1st, 2019. So you have a document which is claimed to provide guarantee. And the least you could do was to do due diligence to satisfy government and ECG that indeed the document is genuine and has been properly issued by those who claim to have issued it. According to the minister's letter, they knew they should have completed the due diligence before the transfer. And yet, we are told they were compelled to do the transfer if in spite of the fact that the due diligence had not been done. And that has occasioned this problem. So eventually, if you go to do due diligence and you have now found out that the guarantee was fake, then it means you have sold out you have given out the property, 22 billion Ghana cedi property, without any guarantee. And that is why we are where we are now. And as if you were not warned, the transaction advisors advise that you do due diligence first before the transfer. These transaction advisors are a reputable company from the United States of America. As we proceed, you now understand the anger coming from the other side. That is the United States. If you didn't know what to do, you have transaction advisors who guide you at any point what you should do. You have received a guarantee. And then the advisors advise you that this guarantee must be verified first. There must be due diligence for you to know that it is valid before you transfer the assets. You say, no, I'm rushing to transfer. So let me transfer first before I go and do a due diligence. Now, after the transfer, you go and you yourself claim that you discovered that the guarantee was not valid. So now who calls up? Now, thirdly, and worst of all, it was when, on the blind side of Parliament, the Akufo-Addo government illegally allowed the original partners of the Miracle-led consortium to form and transfer their respective shares to SPVs, that is special purpose vehicles, with the intent of isolating themselves from any potential risks and liability. There are many people who, if they are not, let me say, financially literate, they may not understand what they did. And it is that we knew, as Ghanaians, that we were dealing with Miracle, together with the local shareholders. But after we signed the deal with Miracle, based on our assessment of the capacity, both financial and technical capacity of Miracle, then Miracle, without informing us, then proceeded to form a subsidiary called Meridian, and then offloaded the 30% shares, which is the subject of the agreement between us and them, to that subsidiary without any notice to our parliament. Somebody will say that, well, Meridian is 100% owned by Miracle. But there are two different legal personalities. So if you have any remedy against Miracle, that remedy is not necessarily applicable to Meridian. You understand? Yes. Then the local shareholders too, taking the cue from what has happened, also began to form special purpose vehicles, so that in case of any problem, you cannot attack them. Because when you talk about limited liability company, it means that the liability of that company in any contract will be limited to the shares. So if we knew we were dealing with Miracle, and you now go and form Meridian without any track record, without any balance sheet, and you transfer our 30% shareholding in ECG to that company, what it means is that if they defaulted on any part of the agreement between us and Miracle, and you want to attach Meridian, they don't have any property for you to attach. Meanwhile, the financial and technical capacity which we assessed in the sovereign parliament of the Republic of Ghana to be adequate for this concession. The fact that Miracle is the 100% shareholder of Meridian doesn't mean that their capacity, the capacity of Miracle is also the capacity of Meridian. They are different things. So these are people who set up to defraud the nation. And nobody can tell me that they did this on the blind side of government. Because even as we expose this, government communicators were all over the place, flaunting documents which they claim is evidence of the fact that the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana is aware of the existence of Meridian, and that Parliament of Ghana was involved in the offloading of shares from Miracle to Meridian. Our MPs have since come out to challenge the authenticity of any such claim. And it is up to them to provide either parliamentary hazard or any official record of Parliament to indicate that indeed the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana actually acquiesced to the transfer of shares from Miracle to Meridian. Under these circumstances, ladies and gentlemen, the people of Ghana must hold none other than President Akufo-Addo and his corrupt government responsible for this PDS embarrassment and financial loss it may have or has already occasioned. Let's now turn to the mistrust between the Akufo-Addo government and the US government. Ladies and gentlemen, we have taken note of what Ken Ofori-Atta states in his termination letter. And I'll add which letter is of doubtful validity. Because as I have said earlier on, the official who is authorized to write any such termination letter is the chairperson of MIDA. So either the government is still playing tricks on us, that their real intention is not to terminate, but let them write some letter to fool Ghanaians. Or else we don't understand what they are doing, or else there must be some reason why the chairperson of MIDA is not the person writing to the MCC. That subject will be revisited some other day. But for now, we are saying that we have taken note of what Ken Ofori-Atta states in his termination letter in the public domain, to the effect that the American government has breached an agreement reached with President Akufo-Addo. We do not know the full facts of this accusation, which seeks to impugn the integrity of the American government, and we hope the U.S. authorities will respond appropriately for all to make a judgment, because we are not spokespersons of the U.S. government. We can only wait and hear their side of the story. Suffice it to say, however, that given the Akufo-Addo government's lack of candor and its record of dishonorable conduct, its account of what transpired at the meeting between President Akufo-Addo and the CEO of MCC should be taken with a pinch of salt. In any case, we demand to know the full content of the said implementation plan, which was submitted by the Millennium Challenge Corporation to the Akufo-Addo government. We want to know. You claim you have passed the Right to Information Bill, and yet you have postponed the date of effective implementation of same. So where we stand now as Ghanaians, nobody can legally force the government to make this information public, because the law is there, but it's not effective. They say next year. So in the absence of the law, we can only appeal through you to make the government disclose fully everything about this implementation plan. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the U.S. government is well aware of the dubious maneuvers employed by President Akufo-Addo and his cabal of family and friends to appropriate the 51% local shareholding in the ECG concession for themselves, and have been minded, the U.S. government has been minded to protect its $500 million grant contributed by the taxpayers of the United States of America to Ghana.